A very good evening to all my dear students and their parents. Thank you so much, Ms. Anusha Soni, for joining us on this evening. And I am really thankful that you have taken some time for our students to guide them from your busy schedule. I'm glad that you all are here on this Sunday evening. So rather than spending time on OTT platform watching some series or the new releases, you all have gathered here. Okay, so one thing is pretty sure that you all are heading towards a bright future. So before we start with this session, let me give you a brief introduction about Ms. Anusha Soni. As you all have come across the image that we have shared with you. So ma'am is from IIM Indore, and she has cleared her IPM 80. She is from batch 2016 to 21. Recently, she has just passed out this year. Currently, Ms. Anusha is working with Bajaj Auto, and that was her pre-placement, which she has converted based on her performance. Other than that, in her 2 years of preparation while doing 11, 12, she has prepared for law entrance. And I can say this that the amount of efforts and the time that she has devoted. So she has come up with the flying colors and she catered AIR 36 in AILET and AIR 407 in CLAT. But despite of that, she chose to get into management. So again, this is one of example that, students can set that you should have options always in your life. And if you have cracked all the options, then it's time to finalize them. So with this, I just handed over the session to Ms. Anusha Soni. So please go ahead, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the extremely warm welcome, ma'am. I'll just take a couple of minutes to set this up. So, while I know that most of you here are already preparing for IPM, you've researched well about what IPM is, you've gone through the curriculum, you're probably excited by the diversity of it. But for the uninitiated, I'll just begin with what actually IPM is as a program, and what exactly does it entail, why is the course called so diverse, and why are people, what's all the hype about basically. So the integrated program in management was started by IIM Indore in the year 2011. It is a very unique creative program meant for students who want to get into the field of management right after the 12th standard and not after completing their undergraduation from a certain other degree. It's a 5-year course with each year having 3 terms of 3 months. So basically, usually other undergrad courses are not trimesters. They have 2 semesters in 1 year, as opposed to IPM, which is 3 terms of 3 months in each year. So that also makes it very academically rigorous once you are in the IPM course, because you're giving midterms and end terms for every semester, for every term in every year. It has 2 parts. One is the first 3 years, which is basically the foundations of management, which is where we don't really study subjects that are supposedly management subjects. We study subjects that build the foundation for us to be able to better grasp those management subjects when we move on to the MBA leg. So the first 3 years build a foundation, and the last 2 years are for the MBA. So that also means that we get 2 degrees. One is BA Foundations in Management Studies, and the second one is MBA. Just to reiterate here, it's not a BBA plus MBA. It's a BA Foundations in Management Studies and an MBA. A lot of other IIMs who have started this course now, which I'll talk about later, have don't really have this BA plus MBA. So please see this carefully. This differs for every IIM and other private and national institutes. Talking about the three pillars of IPM, which are again very famous. One is economics. When you talk about management, you expect an individual to be very well versed with economics. This is one subject that is very rigorously taught in the undergrad leg and the MBA leg alike. So throughout these 5 years, there's a very heavy focus laid on economics, which is also why a lot of IPM students have a certain level of advantage when they move to MBA program academically, because there is a lot of economics that we have already done in the first 3 years. So we automatically are very comfortable with the subject as such. Then there's maths and statistics. Now, this might not be directly used in management as such, but the subjects really do help in building an analytical rigor, just to make individuals be better able to think and think in a very analytical manner. So that is why we have a very strong focus on maths and statistics as well. Humanities is a very fresh addition to the entire course. So while there's economics, maths, and statistics, which are all sort of subjects to make you the conventional smart person, humanities on the other hand, it has really I've really changed. I've really seen a lot of my batchmates change perspectives, talking about how different people think, how there might be different sides to a lot of things. So humanities brings in that creative side to people. So these three were the major building blocks in the first 3 years of IPM. Talking about humanities, we've been taught subjects like psychology, philosophy, positive workplace atmosphere, and all of those things. So it's a very diverse mix and a very fun academic curriculum in the first 3 years, especially. Why IPM? I am not going to pitch IPM here. I'll just tell you why I chose IPM. As ma'am said that I had converted other law colleges. In fact, I had already taken admission in NLU Delhi before I actually gave IPM interview. But I ended up choosing IPM purely because of the perfect blend it had of my different interests. So I am a person who also is very analytically inclined. I always liked solving logical reasoning questions, maths questions while preparing for CLAT. And I also, while I like to do that, I also didn't want to do something that is completely on the same lines. So for me, law versus IPM was purely based on if I were to study law, it would have been 5 years of legal studies, which is great for anyone who's interested in law. But maybe this course better suited my personality, because I always like to do a lot of different things at once, and just to gain a little bit of experience in everything. So I think that is why I chose IPM. Okay, social internship. So this is something very interesting that happens in IPM second year, which is when we go to different companies, their CSR units, different NGOs like Teach for India, Akshay Patra Foundation, UNICEF, and pretty big names, to get an exposure in what the actual ground realities are, and more importantly, to work on solving the problems on ground. So this is again very practical experience opportunity that we get being a part of IPM program. A major focus throughout the IPM program is also to build socially conscious managers, which is a part of the institute motto. So this internship is basically a step in that direction, which is when we as future managers step out into the real world, try to understand what are the realities, how can we find innovative methods to solve these problems. So this happens in IPM second year. Placements, these are roughly the placement numbers which most of the aspirants are highly interested in. I am not really a fan of talking about placements a lot, because I think the course is way more than the placements itself. So you can just have a look at these numbers and also go through the official placement reports that are available on the website. All I can say is that all of our seniors, our batchmates, are placed in extremely reputed institutes. They're working with organizations like Google, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, in different fields ranging from consulting, marketing, finance, operations. You basically everyone is at a very good position and they're enjoying what they're doing. Talking about the most vibrant part of the entire IPM journey is the Student Activity Council, which is basically the unit that brings the life into IPM. So all of the, if you are interested in IPM, if you've seen photos on the Facebook or Instagram pages, all of the activity photos that you've seen there, either the bonfire that is shown here or the dancing, singing, debating, all of those are student organized. So the IPM Student Activity Council is a very, very active body, which also means that every incoming student gets an opportunity to be a part of these clubs and committees and organize events, negotiate with the administration, get things done on a very, very huge scale. So one of the most important parts that I would like to highlight here is that whenever any institute is a student run institute, that automatically means that apart from the internship and work opportunities, the students automatically start developing leadership qualities through these activities and organization of events. So that's a very, very important part of IPM and any other institute that has a very active student run body, which means that you will be actively involved in your own growth throughout the course. So I personally was a very active part of SAC. I was heading the media committee when I was in the undergrad. Then the SAC also enables a lot of other things on the campus, like students opening up their own ventures. Students. There have been students who ran food ventures on campus. So they didn't really cook food there, but they were running a restaurant, which basically a business. So you were given an opportunity to have a shot at running a business before you actually go out after you're done with your academics here. So I also ran a student run venture on campus, and all of these parts are what actually you notice that are what actually changed you 5 years down the line, because you have done things that maybe your counterparts in other colleges or other institutes haven't really gotten an opportunity to do. So that really makes a change to your personality, because you have had your own share of learning, your own share of mistakes. But the most important part is you did get the opportunity to make mistakes in the first place. So I think that is a very, very important part of any student run institute. Again, the campus, I can just go on and on about the campus. It's a very, very green campus of 192 acres. It's on a hilltop, that's why we call it Planet Eye. The word planet also came into being because of the fact that it's a planet in itself. Like, we had all our utilities fulfilled there. We had extremely good sports infrastructure. We had grocery stores. We had kirana stores in the campus. We had different restaurants. We had a laundry on campus. So all the utilities that we can think of in the city and more were there in the institute campus itself. So that is where the term planet comes from. And now, being out of the college, I realized the importance of all of the things that were there, because it was so peaceful and beautiful in itself that you could go out on walks at 2 in the night without having any concerns about your safety. And all those things really add to your academic experience also, because you can really focus on what you're there for. So you don't really have to think about other things. We had a lot of fun places too in the campus. Like, every movie that was released on Friday was screened in campus theater on Saturdays. So we actually got to see all of those movies for free. So it is a very it's a city in itself, and it takes care of all your needs, whether it's academic, whether it's physical fitness, whether it's just having fun. So all of those needs are taken care of by the campus infrastructure. For anyone who has read more on the about the campus, also must be knowing that the campus is not really in Indore city. It's a little on the outer area. So that concerns a lot of people, a lot of parents who are sending their wards to study in IPM. But then we also have like hourly shuttle buses going to and from the campus to the city. So we really don't really have to think about anything else there. Like, how do we get to the city? How do we come back? We have hourly buses going to the city at different stops. So wherever we want to go, we just hop on the bus. Sometimes we used to just hop on the bus without thinking where do we want to go, because we knew that the bus would eventually stop at different locations. So we'll just get down where we would want to. Other features, other things that we do during the IPM course is, one is business internship, which is basically the summer internship which happens after MBA first year, which is IPM second year. So this is a 2-month internship. This is what I did with Bajaj Auto. There's also a very rigorous placement process for summer internships, as there is for final placements. If not, the process is as rigorous as the final placements, if not more. So this is I did my summer internship with Bajaj Auto, and based on my internship performance, they offered me a pre-placement offer, which is why I didn't have to sit for final placement. So that's just my placement experience in the college. Then there's a rural engagement program that again happens in MBA first year. This is also a very interesting program because we are divided into different teams who are sent into very rural areas of India, and we are given a theme for the year. So when we guys went, we were given the theme of water related issues faced by the people of the villages, and we had to come up with a solid plan which we presented in front of higher authorities. We personally presented the solution to the collector of the district, who really appreciated the plan. So all of these things that give you a lot of exposure, you don't really get to do all of these things in every other institute. So these actually highlight your personality traits also a lot, and help you in figuring out where do your strengths lie, where do your weaknesses lie, where can you improve, what can you highlight about yourself more wherever you go, so that you shine out. So all of these things really add that extra edge to your personality. Then there's a foreign exchange program that IPM students can opt to go for either in the third year of IPM or the MBA second year, which is IPM fifth year. This again is one of the best experiences that I had in my entire IPM journey. I chose to go for the foreign exchange program in the third year itself, which is when I traveled to around 12, 13 countries, did a few solo trips, spent 5 months traveling in and around France, backpacking across Europe. For the first time, for someone like me who had always just traveled with family before that, I think this experience, I could really notice a change, a very tangible change in my personality post this foreign exchange program, because you just grow a lot when you're living so far apart from your family, and you literally have to manage everything by yourself. And it's not like if by chance anything goes wrong, you can just call up your family and something will happen, or someone your family knows will be sent to the location to take care of things. Here you literally manage every single thing, from cooking your breakfast to taking a tiffin to your university wherever you're learning, to just your travel expenses and all of that. So everything is being managed by you. Another important part of the foreign exchange program is that now that a lot of my batchmates are working, I'm yet to join the company. I've been placed in Bajaj Auto. So now that a lot of my batchmates have already started working, they've been talking about how most of them are part of international teams. So they have to interact with people from Europe, from USA, from UK, from different parts of the world. So all of the teams are very diverse. So once you have been on a foreign exchange program and you've interacted with students from different nationalities, different cultural backgrounds, you really do get a knack for dealing with the diversity, which is not as easy as it sounds in the first go. And you actually realize how different people really bring different perspectives on the table, and how you think they're so different, yet they're so similar to you in terms of the human nature. So yeah, that experience of talking to people from different nationalities, being comfortable with their presence, being comfortable with interacting with them, and being comfortable with their accents also gets you a little bit of advantage in terms of dealing with diverse teams in future. Then there's a Himalayan outbound program that again happens in MBA second year. This is surprisingly an academic course, so we actually do get academic credits for going for trekking in the Himalayas. So this is again a very fun, life-changing experience. You're made to deal with everything yourself. You go to the Himalayas for a week, and again you do this in teams. There's a competition among teams that who reaches the summit first. So all of these things, all of these different variety of exposure you get in the IPM course and the MBA course really changes you from within. You get to understand yourself better, and you get to understand how to deal with the world better. These are some of the pictures from the student exchange program. Again, definitely one of my most cherished experience throughout the IPM journey. Talking about how to actually get into the IPM course, the application form I think is still open for IIM Indore. The IPM aptitude test, which I would talk about more in the later slides. And then there's a personal assessment. Now this, due to the pandemic this year and the last year, this might change, the structure of this might change. Conventionally, how it happens is once you clear the IPM aptitude test, you get to appear for an interview and a written ability test. And that is where you're judged based on your personality, your communication skills, because understand that your aptitude has already been judged in the exam. So although there might be a lot of aptitude, academic knowledge based question asked in your interview, the interviewers or the panelists have already seen your aptitude and academic performance previously. So there's also a major focus on personality and other related aspects of it. This is the application criteria for this year, which is candidates should have been born on or after August 1, 2001. They should have 12th, they should have passed standard 12th or equivalent examination. I don't know how it's going to be judged for people who are writing the test this year, but I hope whatever it is goes in your favor. And you should have a minimum of 60% in 10th and 12th. This is again a lesser known fact because a lot of people think that it's only the aptitude test and the interview, but there's also a percentage cutoff that you have to be very mindful of. Talking about the IPM aptitude test. Now there are 3 sections in the aptitude test, 100 questions, 400 marks. Every question has 4 marks. Quantitative ability section, -1 mark for each wrong answer, 40 questions, 40 minutes. The most important thing to be careful about in this section is to know which questions do you want to attempt first, because this is really a mixed bag. You might find very easy questions and very difficult questions in the same set of 40 questions. So you need to be aware of what has traditionally been your area of comfort and what can you start with. Since this is generally seen as the heavy section in the IPM exam, I personally found it very difficult. I had a commerce with maths background, so I wasn't really used to solving very rigorous maths question. I was preparing for CLAT and other exams, but the level of maths questions that I used to solve there were very different from what I actually saw in the IPM exam. So I was slightly taken aback by seeing the quantitative ability section, which is in complete contrast to the verbal ability section, because that I found really easy. That was a cakewalk for me, because if you're someone who's used to conversing in English in your school or just the basic language skills, I think this should be a comfortable section for you, because it doesn't really test a lot about how strong your memory is or how many meanings of different words you can remember. But what it actually tests is your communication skills, which is not really the same as vocabulary. So it really tests how easily can you understand different things written in English, how good are you at presenting your views in a more structured format, which is also tested in written ability test. So all of these things are what you should be careful about in the verbal ability section. Then there's quantitative ability short answer, which is no negative marking, but then you get a certain space to write out your answer. So you don't really, you can't really take a shot at just guessing one of the answers or just eliminating two of the answers and choosing one of the two. So you can't really do that here. One question, 4 marks again, but you get more time in this section. This usually you can type your answer in one word or one sentence at max in this section. Nowadays IPM 80 is time bound, so you get a certain amount of time for every section, which is why it makes it slightly more difficult, because I'll just talk about my experience. So since I already told you guys that verbal ability was my comfortable section, so even though technically we had 40 minutes for it, I think I solved it in some 10 minutes or lesser, and I gave all of the other remaining time to quantitative ability. So that is how it used to be easier, but now since the time is limited, you can't really use the time left in your section of strength in your weaker section. So you have to practice you have to practice on the test taking speed a lot, because the time is the biggest factor here in terms of making a difference between whether you crack it or whether the person sitting beside you cracks the exam. Okay, so talking about how to prepare for IPM 80, which is what most of the people keep asking me on a lot of social media channels. First point is understand the pattern of the exam. It's an aptitude test. It is not going to test how difficult questions can you solve. It is going to test how conceptually clear you are with your maths concepts, especially the concepts that are there till 10th standard. So if you have put in a fair share of effort in the math subject till 10th standard, I think this section should be comfortable for you, because you have already built an aptitude for solving these questions. Then take the help of IPM 80 previous year's exam papers. This is a luxury that we didn't have when we were giving IPM. So I think this is one of the best resources that you can make use of, because earlier there was a lot of ambiguity regarding how does one actually prepare for the exam, because there were no official previous year papers, and all of the books that I actually referred to had easier questions, way easier questions than the questions that were actually asked in the exam. So this resource, these are the previous year's papers available on the website. Please do make use of these papers. Give mocks regularly. Why I say this, because especially students, if there are students here who are attending the webinar who are from commerce background or commerce with maths background, you have to understand that most of the students who are from science background are already used to preparing for a competitive exam pattern, which is very different from the kind of exams that we usually give in our school days. So you need to be comfortable with the overall pattern in itself, which is why you should give mocks regularly. Fourth is focus on accuracy and time management, which directly translates to do not focus on solving all the questions. Solving all the questions or making the maximum attempts in the exam shouldn't really be your aim. Focus on your accuracy, focus on how to manage your time better, so that you solve those questions more in which you have a higher chance of getting the answer right, rather than solving a lot of questions. This again and again, I've talked to many IPM aspirants about this. So any competitive exam for that matter, and IPM 80 in itself, there are two parts to any competitive exam. If you're preparing for IPM 80 or other exams such as CLAT or any other such design exams, all of those exams, there are two parts to it. One is subject knowledge, which is how well do you know English, how well do you know maths, how much you can remember of your studies before 10th, and all of what you've done during your coaching also. Then there's a second part which is usually extremely ignored, which is the test taking part. So subject knowledge is how well do you know maths, and test taking is how well can you solve maths questions if they're given to you. And no matter how much you think these two are related or directly proportional, in a lot of cases it is not. I've seen people who were extremely well with subject knowledge. They were they were very conceptually clear about maths and English subjects. They knew different concepts. They were well versed with how to approach different questions. But in terms of test taking, they usually I saw a lot of people getting nervous with the exam, because understand that the kind of pattern of the exam is not something that is comfortable to you, because you've been used to giving exams in schools that are very different on their in terms of the nature in itself. So developing a test taking practice is very important, just for you to get comfortable with an exam like that, so that once you are giving the paper, you're not feeling like you're doing something new. It should be something that you're familiar with. You're doing something comfortable, because naturally, if you're feeling comfortable with the exam pattern, you are going to perform better. So that is one of the most ignored aspect of it. And test taking, how to develop a test taking acumen is by giving mocks. Give as many mocks as you can get as comfortable with the competitive exam pattern as you can, because that will actually develop a rigor for taking competitive exams. You will understand how what suits you in terms of attempting the questions. How do you like to attempt the questions better? Which section do you like doing first, and all of those things. Five biggest mistakes I've seen students make in the IPM AT preparation. First one is not giving enough mocks. I know I've been repetitive in this, but just to be very clear about this, and I think it's better to be repetitive than ignoring this aspect altogether, because not giving enough mocks, you don't get used to the pattern. You're not comfortable with sitting in the examination hall with other people who are eyeing the same college as you, with around 40,000 other people who are eyeing the same college as you, and do not and the college has only 120 seats. So you should get comfortable with that level of competition. Mistake number two is ignoring mock analysis. While I've talked a lot about how important it is to give more and more mocks, it is also important, as important, if not more, to analyze your mocks if once you've given the mocks. This again is a very ignored aspect. So once you've given the mocks, especially if you have good results, you're like, हाँ अब तो हो गया मेरा, I've gotten a good rank in my coaching and that's it. But then you're not really understanding how can you improve your performance. Once you've given the mock, this is what I used to do that I used to sit with the mock. I used to see what are the kind of questions that I'm consistently getting wrong, and what are the kind of questions that I'm consistently getting right, so that I can identify my strengths, polish them. I can identify my weaknesses and work on them. So that once I am taking the paper, I know that, okay, this is a question from my strength area. This is what I should surely attempt first in order to better utilize my time than to take up a question from my weakness area and waste time on it, which has a higher probability of me getting the question wrong. So that is what you actually get through your mock analysis. You also don't really get a sectional understanding, but also topic wise understanding, that okay, if a question from algebra comes, I might be better able to solve it. But say if a question from permutation and combination comes, I think I should avoid that, or I should keep that for the last bit of the exam. So that is what really helps you in taking the exam on the D-Day. Mistake number three is focusing only on strengths. So some students take the mocks, analyze them, identify the strengths, and focus only on the strengths. Maybe because of the discomfort of the weakness area, that this is something I never get right, so I'm not going to work on this from now on, and I'll just focus on my strengths, which is not really how it does not really add a lot of value to your preparation, because please understand that there's no set number of questions from every topic for the IPM exam. So for all you know, there might be a lot of questions from your area of weakness. So if you've only worked on your strength areas, you are taking a big risk in that sense. So I would suggest that focus on your strengths, but focus on your strengths focus on polishing your strengths, but focus on improving your weakness areas. So give a lot of time on maybe not acing the areas of weakness. So don't set unrealistic targets also, that okay, this is my area of weakness, but by 2 or 3 months and I'm going to get like a 90% a 90% score in this section. But focus on just getting at least an average performance. Maybe if it's a weaker area, just getting better at it should be way better for you than just focusing on your strength. Next is focusing only on weaknesses. Again, a lot of people get comfortable with the fact that okay, these are my strength areas. Now only these are the areas that I have to work on, and I'll completely forget about the strength areas. This is again not really the best strategy to take, because especially if you're in the last leg of the IPMAT preparation, because even if no matter how strong you are in that section, if you keep practicing, you will have a higher accuracy. You will take lesser time to solve those questions. And if you just keep your strength areas aside for a month or two, the time taken to solve the questions in the first place will increase. There are extremely high chances of this happening, which you don't want. So do not completely ignore your strengths also. Keep polishing that side by side while working on your weaknesses. What you can do is give lesser amount of time for your strengths, because you know you're comfortable with these topics, so you don't really have to work on them from scratch. So you can allot lesser time for these topics, but don't completely ignore the strengths as well. Fifth mistake that I've seen a lot of people making, and mostly people from the commerce background, is that we tend to get scared of maths. Which is what I also did, to be very honest, in the beginning of my preparation. But then I understood that this is not really maths, like, especially not like 11th, 12th maths, or maths from 9th grade onwards. Like, you don't really have to prove things or do, or, you don't really are at a stage where you have to mix English and maths. I think that bit of maths is what is hated by most people. I realized early on that I'm good with aptitude. So I'm good with logical reasoning. And then I realized that there is a very high correlation between the logical reasoning section and the math section. And the basic foundation of both of these sections is the same, which is an analytical thought process. So don't get scared of maths right away based on the judgment that post ninth my maths has not been very good, so I'm not good at that subject. See if you're actually analytically inclined, if you're actually comfortable with problem solving, which is what which is the underlying principle in both maths and logical reasoning. So it's the thought process, it's just the will to get to an answer through whichever method you find comfortable. So don't go with this mental block into the preparation stage, especially if there's someone attending this webinar who's from 11th or 10th standard. You are at a stage where you can polish this skill a lot, and you have enough time to do that. And you have enough time to get rid of a mental block if you've had any, that maths to mera acha tha nahi, this is the heaviest section in the exam, so I cannot crack this exam. Do not have that mental block, because more often than not, it's actually your mental block that stops you from scoring more in this section than your conceptual clarity. So it's when you're thinking that this ye to nahi hoga mujhse, that is when you're actually not able to solve that question. Once you get rid of that mental block ki acha maths hai, once you get rid of the fear, you will automatically be able to perform better, because you're not attempting those questions with that sort of thought process. So try and get rid of the mental block as early as possible in your preparation journey. uh, Things that I think worked for me is not getting stressed out, obsessing over the course. I think if there are parents attending this webinar, you also have a very, very important role to play in this, because a huge credit also goes to my parents, because they never really pressurized me into studying or telling me what to do, how to study. I was very independent in that sense. So that really helped me keeping myself sane and stress free, so I could focus on my subject, on my preparation in itself. Another part about not getting stressed for students is how do you not get stressed when your entire career is not dependent on one exam. So when you are preparing for different exams, and you are not like कि अगर ये एग्जाम नहीं हुआ तो मैं क्या करूंगी, because तुम्हारे पास options हैं और भी. So that is, I think that is again what worked for me, because I was preparing for different exams, primarily law exams, but I was going to write different exams as well. So that really helped me stay out of stress, because there were different exams that I could place my bets on. So I didn't really walk into any of the examination halls thinking that this is the exam on which my life is dependent upon, and that really helps in bringing down your stress levels. Second is self-awareness. Again, comes through mock analysis, just interactions with your faculty mentor if you've joined a coaching, and all of those things. Just understanding what works for you, what doesn't, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what preparation strategy works for you, how comfortable are you in writing the mock exam or the final exam in the examination hall. If you're not comfortable, what is it that you could do just before entering the examination hall that helps you calm down. For example, maybe you're someone who gets very anxious before giving any mock, so maybe just deep breathing right before the mock test helps you a lot. So just knowing all of these small things helps in increasing your performance eventually. And when all of these small things get added up, you actually see a significant difference in your scores, which is what I did while I was taking mocks for CLAT and other law entrance exams. Then self-loyalty, this is for the students. You might lie to your parents about your preparation, you might lie to your teachers about it. It's completely fine. A lot of people do that. I don't want to say it's completely fine, but the important part here is do not be untruthful to yourself. If you're not preparing, know that you're not preparing. So don't give yourself false hopes. Don't count on those lies that you've been telling yourself that okay, ये तो section हो गया है, ये topic मेरा खत्म हो गया है. नहीं हुआ है तो be honest about it to at least yourself, if not your parents or teachers, that this is things that I haven't done till now, and this is something that I need to work on. Because lying to yourself it'll cause more harm than lying to your parents and teachers or anyone else for that matter, because you will actually be ignorant of things if you're not honest about it to yourself. So no matter who you lie to during your preparation, don't lie about it to yourself. Be honest. Work hard towards where you think you've not been working hard enough. And if you think that you don't want to work hard for this is not something that really excites you, be honest about that too to yourself, so that at least you're not placing hopes for your future on this thing, because you already know that your efforts have not really been enough for you to get through this exam. Communication skills, again, this is not just about fluent English speaking or remembering a lot of fancy, difficult English words. This is also about understanding what the other person is saying, mostly in English, because no matter how much you might come up with arguments like this is not our language, this is given up by given to us by people who are not from our land, but the reality is that you want to get to a good college, right? And we at this stage have to do whatever it takes to get into that college. And if English is an important part of the selection procedure, you have to work hard towards it. So communication skills in the sense of listening to the other person, understanding what the other person is saying, communicating effectively, framing your thoughts in a structured, clear manner, so that you are explaining what you want to say to the other person in a clear, concise form. All of those things really help you, not only in the interview stage, but also in your test taking stage. So in the aptitude test, how is the questions? So you don't need to read the questions multiple times in order to understand it if you have good command over your communication skills. So you read the question in one go, you understand the question, and you have no idea how much time it helps you save. So that is also a level at which your communication skills help. And not just for entrance or your college. This is something that will help you throughout. So just try and build your communication skills, try and communicate more among your batchmates, your teachers, have group discussions on topics that you feel are important. Any small thing that you think is good at developing developing good communication skills. Fifth part that really worked for me is healthy competition. So there were a bunch of students in our coaching institute who were really eyeing that rank one in every mock. So that really kept us motivated throughout the journey. Ki even if someone is my best friend, I would be like, "Acha, tera rank one kaise aaya? Next mock mein mera aayega." So that helps you prepare better for the mocks, and that also doesn't let you take mocks like acha mock hi to hai, because it's not just another mock for you, it's something that you want to get a rank one in. So having that sort of a group where you can actually compete with each other, where you're all good at something, so you're actually at the same level of competition, that also works in your favor because it lets you never take things lightly in your preparation journey. Frequently asked questions about IPM. Is there an exit option after completing 3 years of graduation? Yes. Many of my juniors have taken CAT after 3 years and gone to IIM, ABC, or for an MBA abroad. So you get all of those options. You also get a sabbatical option, which I will talk about later. Do IPM students stand at a disadvantage due to lack of work experience? So this is also another question that I frequently get asked, that whether the placements are at par with PGPs. You have to understand this, that most of the PGPs who are coming through CAT, first of all, IPM has a huge age advantage. We are 22, 23, going out in the corporate world, mostly at par with the PGP counterparts who are coming with a average age of around 25. So that gives us a lot of age advantage. Secondly, talking about work experience, there are a lot of companies that prefer some sort of work experience. So that doesn't really put you at a disadvantage. That's not really a good fit for you placement wise also, because that puts IPM students and PGP freshers who are coming without any work experience at the same pedestal, because the company is already only opening for people who have a certain level of work experience, which is fair for them, because there are certain roles that demand a speciality, or for example, some roles that demand someone has worked in a factory or shop floor. So that doesn't really put you at a disadvantage, because there are also roles that prefer freshers who have no work experience. So again, this is also a very diverse bucket, and you can pick and choose what you really want to go ahead with. Is IPMAT as tough as JEE? I haven't given JEE, so I am not really the best person to comment on this. But from whatever I've seen my friends talk about, it's not as difficult as JEE, because again, it's a aptitude-based test. You don't really have to be very well versed with the technical bits. Education loan. So again, a very big misconception that people have about IPM is that it's meant for rich people who can afford to take up the course without an education loan, which is way distant from the reality, because most of the students, myself included, have taken education loans. Most of us come from middle class families. I just had tea with Parle Ji, so that says a lot. So most of us have education loans which are easily payable once you get placed. So, and the value you get in return of what you're paying is immense. So that factor again comes in, of how much you get versus how much you're paying, and how easily can you recover whatever you're paying. And that is where the placements bit comes ahead, that you can easily repay all of your education expense through the placements that you get. Then there's also a need-based financial assistance program by IIM Indore, which is if you have your family income below a certain level, your tuition fee is taken care of by the institute. So you don't really have to worry about that. There are certain parameters that you have to fulfill. There are also other scholarships based on your performance. So if you if you perform academically really well, you get a lot of scholarships by the institute. Another important aspect that is not mentioned in one of these bullet points is that being an IIM, it holds a certain repute among banks also. So usually the process of taking an education loan for other institutes might be difficult, but I'll tell you my thing that I went into the bank, I told them the institute name, the program name, and my loan was sanctioned in less than 15 minutes, like all formalities done at very, very favorable interest rates and all of the other things, because the bank also knows that this person will be able to repay the loan in a given time. So the banks have also exerted that sort of confidence on the program. Plus, once you're taking admission in the college, like once you're in the college during the induction, the banks actually set up stalls there for you to take loans from them. So you have to choose which bank do you want to take your loan from. So again, you have that facility uh, at your disposal right during the induction, the first day you enter college. Exit option after 3 years, this I already talked about. Sabbatical is what we're going to talk about now, which is basically that after 3 years you can go for, I think, 2 years at max, for getting a work experience. So for people who are actually concerned about IPM students being at a disadvantage due to lack of work experience, this is specifically for them. So you actually have the luxury of opting for a sabbatical after 3 years, getting some amount of work experience, and then coming back to do an MBA. So you are assured that you already have an MBA seat at IIM Indore, which is one of the premier B schools of the institute. You can work for 2 years, focus on work, come back, adding a lot more value to yourself and the course as a whole. Of course, you have to fulfill certain criteria to be able to avail this option, because not everyone gets the luxury of getting this. So you have to be ahead of your batchmates in terms of academic performance and certain other things, which is when you can avail this option. Other institutes have also started integrated program in management courses. Some of the IIMs that have started apart from IIM Indore is IIM Rohtak, IIM Ranchi, IIM Jammu, IIM Bodh Gaya. And this is Nalsar is just another institute of national importance. It is the law college in Hyderabad, which is one of the most reputed law colleges in India, that has also started an integrated program in management for people who don't know. So, you know, a lot of institutes of national importance are starting a course like this, which again talks about the fact that the course has actually done well for itself, that other institutes are now coming up with a similar course. And officially it's not announced, but from what I've heard is that IIM Lucknow and IIM Bangalore are also coming up with the integrated program in management courses. So that again talks about how much of a reputation the course has created for itself based on the students it has sent out into the corporate world, and the kind of value addition it has brought to the management landscape in India overall. So I think that was it from my end. I'm now open to questions if you have any.
It was a wonderful session, Tanusha. Students, please share your doubts, your questions. Okay, so there's a question from Aditya. And she asked that what is the average cutoff section-wise?
Average cutoff section-wise, I'm not really extremely well aware of this. I think that is available on the website itself. One question that I usually get asked is that what is a safe score in the mocks? How do we know out of 400 if you're on track for the actual exam? And based on my experience solely, the average performance keeps on changing every year, so I can't really say with 100% surety that this should be a safe score. But I think based on my experience through these years, I've seen that people who actually scored around 250 plus usually are at a safe place during mock. So try and aim for that score. Sectional cutoffs I'm not really well aware of. I'm sure these will be available on the website. So I would just.
And I think it's purely depend on the level of paper that
exactly
that year they are
right.
releasing.
Right.
Okay, so there's another question from Atharv. He is asking, what would you suggest for 2022 appearing students
I think most of what I suggest has already been
on
covered
how
in
to
the
prepare for quant? Yeah.
yeah, it's already been covered in the presentation. For 2022, all I would suggest is that you have a lot of time at your luxury. So most other students might be just opting for your crash course for the crash course. So since you have a lot of time at your luxury, be make sure that you make good use of it. You polish your skills. Uh, you convert your weaknesses into your strengths, and don't sort of compare yourself to your friends at this stage, because you have a lot of time to change things. So don't go ahead with the notion that okay, this person has been performing better than me for years now, so that is how it is going to continue. So don't go with that notion. You have 1 year to change all of those things.
Okay, so Dhanashri has asked a question that how to go about personal interview and what are the expectations?
Okay, so for the personal interview bit, uh, a lot of you have to understand that IPM is a very academically rigorous course. So for every interview, I tell students that you have to understand really what the interviewer is trying to test here. So since IPM is an academically rigorous course, you will be expected to be fairly comfortable with your previous academics. So most of the times, IPM students in the interviews are questioned on their 11th and 12th subjects. I was questioned a lot on economics because I was from commerce and that was my area of strength. Usually, this is one advice that I give everyone is that pick one area of interest or subject of interest from your 11th and 12th academics that you're extremely comfortable with. If not all the subjects, if you don't have time to revise all of your 11th and 12th academics, at least have one or two strengths that you're extremely comfortable with, that you have gone in depth revising all of the small bits of it, because then you will then the interviewer can also see that at least this person is comfortable with one area of interest. So I can be rest assured that if this person picks up certain strengths during the academic course, that person will have enough focus on that. So one, be well versed with your 11th and 12th academics, because expect a lot of questions from those areas. Secondly, be generally aware, like what is happening around you. You should be able to talk about what is happening around you, just current affairs, or not maybe not just current affairs, maybe what is the occupation of your mother or your father, how much do you know about it. These are things that are expected out of a person who is generally aware. So you should be the interviewer might be trying to test that how receptive you are to things that are happening around you, and how attentive you are to those things, and how curious you are about whatever is happening around you. So just be very well aware of all of these things. For example, if you mention traveling as your hobby, or maybe gaming as your hobby. So one of my friends mentioned gaming as his hobby in the interview, because you don't really have to have a hobby that sounds very intellectual to the interviewers. You can be honest about your hobbies. All they're going to see is whether you know about your hobby. So he was just asked that, do you know which company has developed your favorite game? So things like those, which actually tell the interviewer that you're sort of noticing what is happening around you. Third is communication skills, which is something that I also talked about in the presentation. You might be aware about things that are happening around you, but you might not be able to communicate that to the interviewer. So work on communication skills, work on your confidence. Don't get stressed out. Try, and a small smile really doesn't do any harm. So take care of all of these things. So just to summarize: academics, 11th and 12th academics, communication skills, and the second thing that I talked about was being generally aware. So these things have practice. Just try to inculcate these things now, especially if you are preparing for IPM 2022, for which you have a lot of time.
Yeah, Dhruv asked another question since he's from 2021 batch. So any special tip that you can give to him?
any special any special tip would right now just be just focus on the exam a lot, but have since it's I don't know how if the date of the exam is announced for the IPMAT for different institutes now, but since this is not a significant amount of time is left, don't stress about things a lot that you can't change. Focus on the things that you can change in this one last month, and do your preparation accordingly. Don't think about all of those things that are not in your control right now.
Okay, any other questions? So thank you so much, friends. Thank you so much, Ms. Anusha Soni, for spending time with our students, guiding them and mentoring them. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've always loved interacting with students. Thank you so much.